Ready, set, go!
Registration is now open for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education 2023 Annual Conference. It's in Philadelphia, December 4th through 6th, 2023, setting the standard transformation through accreditation. You don't want to miss it. Register now at msche.org.
Surprise!
We're taking the EdUp Experience podcast to Insights EDU. Join us for an incredible higher education marketing and enrollment management conference, February 20th to 22nd in Phoenix, Arizona. Register now at insightsedu.com and use promo code EdUp to save $50 off your registration. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salustio here again. I want to remind everybody as I kick off these sessions and these podcasts that I do every single day at lunch. Yes, I always joke that I slam a salami sandwich in my mouth and then podcast, but it actually is true. I just finished a salami sandwich about 5 minutes ago before I started this podcast. So be glad that we're not in person and then I'm on a microphone because I haven't had a chance to brush my teeth after lunch. But anyway, I'm digressing from the point here. We are in person at two upcoming events. We are podcasting live at the Middle States Commission for Higher Education in December. It'll be our first visit to one of the regional or formerly regional accreditors, and we're really excited. And our great friend, Dr. Heather Perfetti, is bringing us to Middle States, and that's in December in Philadelphia. And then in this coming February, it would be 2024, we will be at the Insights EDU conference in Arizona, in Phoenix, with Education Dynamics. And so we're really, really excited to broadcast in person. If you're going to be attending either of those conferences, it's not going to be hard to find me. There'll be like 6 microphones around a computer and my sound effect machine, which if you've listened to this podcast, you know what to expect when it comes to the sounds. Somebody that doesn't know fully what to expect when it comes to the sounds is my guest co-host today. She's a first-time guest co-host. They didn't give her a lot of prep time, let's be honest. She's filling in for somebody, but she did it last minute. She's doing it with a smile on her face. Ladies and gentlemen, her name is Morgan Gonzalez. She's the VP of Account Management for the Enrollment Management Services Division at Education Dynamics. Morgan, welcome to the mic.
Thank you, Joe. A pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to have these co-hosting duties and make you proud.
Well, you will, because you can't do it as horribly as I do it when I talk about salami sandwiches and brushing my teeth. So it can only go up from there. See, I'm setting you up for success.
Hey, I may have slammed a salami sandwich myself before this podcast.
I would, yeah, that's awesome. Now we have something to talk about. Somebody that has slammed a salami sandwich into their mouth is probably my guest. Although I can't be sure because I didn't ask him directly. But I'm going to bring him in right now because I think we've got a lot to talk about. He's got a pretty important role. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today, your guest, his name is Justin Singh, and he is the Chief Transformation and Strategy Officer at this little tiny company you know as McGraw Hill. What's going on, Justin?
Hi, Joe. Hi, Morgan. Looking forward to this conversation today. No salami sandwiches this morning, but coffee and banana combination before this podcast, which can be very potent. So maybe next time I see you both in person, we can have a breath off.
This is lunacy.
Scare each other the most.
Yeah, we love this start of this podcast. I do already. But as we shift into talking about higher ed in particular, McGraw Hill is not a name. If you work in education or higher education, I don't think that there is anyone, it's possible, but I don't think there's anybody that could say they hadn't heard of McGraw Hill before. Probably read it on a book somewhere or saw it at the bottom of an article somewhere or heard about the transformation happening. Can you talk about McGraw Hill as an organization? Let's just assume somebody didn't hear of it before. Yeah. What does McGraw Hill do?
Joe, you're absolutely right. We have a wonderful 135-year legacy of serving teachers, students, and institutions across the world, right from kinder, so K-12, to higher education, and then to support lifelong learning. In fact, we have our digital learning products supporting over 98% of school districts in the US, and we're present in virtually every US college, and then across the world as well in over 100 different countries. We are a digital education company. And Joe, my role as Chief Transformation Strategy Officer is to listen and ensure that McGraw Hill is best positioned to meet the needs of our students and our teachers who do such great work to ensure that they can become whatever they want to be in the future. So it is an incredible company built off of 130 years of just delivering high quality learning experiences. And as Joe, you allude to, have been transforming to continue to meet their needs, our products have also rapidly transformed from what you may have known us into that little red cube on the bottom of the book to really delivering those fantastic digital learning experience with that. No doubt we're going to talk a bit more today.
Amazing.
I want to get right into that, because if you've been around long enough, you have seen the little red cube on a book. And when you go to class now as a student in K-12 or as an adult student, or a traditional higher education student, somebody that's going into residential university, there are books, there are open educational resources, there are approved articles. When people hear McGraw Hill, I think if you've been around long enough, you think publishing, you think the hard book, but that's not really what McGraw Hill is doing anymore, is it?
You're absolutely right. The majority of our work, our investment, our student-teacher interactions is in our digital education products. So these are our student and teacher platforms, whether that is in K-12 and in higher education, to make our professors and instructors' lives easier, but providing them trusted and the right content to make that happen. We also use these platforms to create engaging experiences. So think about simulations, think about mini games, think about different forms of content. And that provides us that opportunity to deliver that to the students, but also provide that feedback and that analytics back to the instructor and back to the institutions themselves.
You know, branding, and I'm going to pass it to you, Morgan, but branding is such an important part of this. And I've known McGraw Hill for a long time, and I've had people actually say that to me, like, "Oh, in McGraw Hill, they just they do the textbooks, right?" Yeah. And it's like,
I don't think so.
You know, they do so many other things, and part of your job is transformation and strategy is to take us to the new frontier of what learning is, right? How do you think about that?
Yeah, Joe, it's a really great that's exactly right. And it all starts off with, you know, where our students and professors and instructors are today. And when we, you know, I feel a very privileged and responsible position where I get the chance to talk to hundreds of students and instructors, and very different emerging pain points are emerging. Joe, you mentioned, when you start this podcast, right pre-pandemic to an amazing work you've done to now. Well, we see the exact same major shifts happening both on the students and the instructor side. So for example, on the student side, there's been a lot of talk about learning loss in the K-12 sector. Well, guess what? In the class of 2027, that's impacting higher education. That hasn't gone away. And that's been as much as 30% of learning loss that now is moving into higher education. And what we hear from students is that they are changing the way they're studying. Yes, we've heard the usual thing, the moving cities, the usual type of pain points that we've all had to go through when we went into college. But what I'd say, it's exacerbated. Students are feeling, in the majority of the time when they're getting ready for student, feeling overwhelmed. And many times they're feeling that they're assigned materials, they're finding over 60% of finding it unengaging. And 1 in 4 have considered dropping out because they're having problems, or they're feeling about connecting with the content and connecting with their study materials. And so, we figured in terms of, how diverse this cohort is, we feel that it's one of our responsibilities to change the way that we deliver these education content and learning experiences. So we see that on the student side. On the instructor side, we regularly ask our instructors, well, as I visit, I'm based here in Miami, Joe, and visit some of the community colleges here, and we ask, like, what are the pain points that you're feeling, and we hear it across the country. Number one, academic integrity in this hybrid model.
Yikes!
And I think we've all seen the impact of, let's just say, cheating websites on how it's made the lives of our professors, our instructors, much more harder to do what they want to do, which is help their students learn. We also hear loud and clear that change also being impacting our teachers as well. They're saying these students are coming in, they don't have the baseline knowledge and we need to get and catch them up as much as we can. And that's only going to exacerbate it as well. And that theme of engagement as well. So, Joe, that's why we have been doing a lot of investment with brand new platforms that are completely different to this industry. Example of that is a platform that we call Sharpen that fundamentally really attacks both these pain points, both on the student and teacher and instructor level, and ultimately the institution as well.
Morgan, I'm going to pass it to you, but I want to ask about Sharpen too. And when we come back around to it, if you don't, I'll catch them on the backside of your question and answer.
Well, I might beat you to it, Joe, but I know that Justin, you touch on the way students are attempting to get their information changing. And I think a study that you had put out, had mentioned that 78% of students are now going to social media for their study needs. And I think that has a lot of consistency with what we see on our side when we're doing research for, online college students, where students aren't necessarily only going to social media to look on how to study. They're also going to social media and other avenues to figure out how they want to choose a college. So I think one of the questions that I have is that as we see those ages blurring for who may want to attend an online institution, and knowing that you at the beginning of this podcast had mentioned there's a number of different audiences that you serve. Do you also anticipate that when you look at that lifelong learning segment, before we get into Sharpen specifically, or even with Sharpen, how do you envision that continuing to, I guess, be balanced across all those different audiences?
Yeah, I agree, Morgan. I mean, when we did that survey, because we listened to the students and we asked that question, so what are they doing? They're feeling unengaged. There is this feeling of anxiety. Where are they going to? And that was really the impetus of doing that survey when we learned that majority of students, 78% of students, are going to social media. In fact, we're seeing that grow up when you start to put AI chatbots and the impact of ChatGPT, particularly this semester, that going. Even though we found 88% of students know they can't trust it. They can't trust the material that they're seeing. It often takes them a lot of time to go and find that. And and then even to double click on that, we know that 20%, or specifically around 20% of students spend over 6 hours a week just searching social media for learning content. And Morgan, to your point, you can add even more on that when they think about selecting whether it's a college or a particular degree as well. So when we think about serving, that changing nature, fundamentally students are going out there to learn. They're going to solve that pain point because they want to learn. They want to get there's a reason why they're going to the higher education institutions in the first place. And so for us, when we think about how do we serve these constituents, it's about unlocking the treasure trove of that 130 years of trusted content, but delivering in a new manner, in a manner that resonates to them and just meets them where they're at. That absolutely means the way that we do our videos. So I'm sure, Morgan, you can resonate. 4-minute videos teaching the key concepts that they must need to know. The type of presenter that's presenting to them, making sure that it's a diverse presenter, that represents the constituency that we're seeing in the student population is very important too. And then also reinforcing that learning as they go up the Bloom's taxonomy as well. And so for us, it's really ensuring, keeping to what we've been great at as a company, that trusted content and helping students with solving that pain point, but also not wasting their time as well, and giving a place where teachers can go to that they can recommend. And in this case, and this is all in Sharpen, but a place they can recommend that so they can recommend something so with these cheating websites as well.
Tell them like it is.
So I don't know if Joe, this is where I steal your thunder if you want to ask, but I guess I would say with that as the kicking off point, maybe Justin, if you could have the listeners get your overview of the app Sharpen and really how it's helped both students and educators so far.
Morgan, it's Sharpen is a learning platform, and we heard these pain points both from the student and instructor side. And what we set out to do is create a platform so every single student in an institution is enabled to crush their year one studies, regardless if they are in a McGraw Hill classroom or whatever publisher classroom, regardless what subjects they're undertaking, they're able to freely access this platform that delivers essentially a different way of studying and interacting with learning content that we know that instructors are assigning to them, that we know that students are struggling with, and that's how we've built the content. And so what Sharpen does is when any student or any learner, I should say, whether you're a student or a learner, you can interact with Sharpen and get into and start interacting with a personalized learning feed of short videos that are around 4 to 5 minutes long, that goes to the exact learning objectives that students need to get to the baseline information, but also quizzes, practical examples, and summaries so they can reinforce their learning, but in a way that resonates with them, in a way that also, dare I say, and I think the media gets this wrong a lot. They give this feeling that instructors aren't technology savvy too. Well, they also are we're all used to FaceTiming. We're all used to talking over Zoom or talking over Teams. We're now used to that as a society, as an institution, as an industry. And so we're just delivering this content in a very different way that hasn't been seen in industry before, and also that horizontal access for every student and learner.
So that's amazing. How does this get launched, Sharpen? How did it roll out? How do you communicate it? Who's using it? What's the adoption rate like? Because all those come in, whenever you have an app, that's always a big portion of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we took a risky bet as a company a year ago, but we knew we had to do something. And I'm sure, Joe, you've been interviewing leaders of in the higher institution place, and they're doing very much the same thing, really listening to students and meeting where they are. So we started when we started to see these major trends. We could get that feedback from students and the instructors, and we launched, I would say, what we call internally a minimal level product at the end of around the end of last year, and then we've been expanding on that to this point now. And since we launched Sharpen as a minimal level product because it was at the time so different in the way you interact with this content, we want to start small. And what we found was we were just inundated with students saying, wow, this is finally a new way to study. A classic quote that happened in one of our interviews was a student said, she said, it reminds me of TikTok and my textbook had a baby. And this is what I feel like. And so over that year from end of last year, we've had around 500,000 students come to Sharpen because they want to use Sharpen, not that they've assigned to use Sharpen. They want that way to study. And we've been growing and growing. I mean, it's still early days for Sharpen, but we're seeing that in, our NPS scores, in the 90s. We've got, in the reviews that we're seeing as well. And we're starting to see that feedback from instructors as well, where they're saying that finally there's a place that I can recommend to my students to crush year one, and two, a place that I can trust that isn't these. I know they're going to these cheating websites. I know they're interacting with that. I know they're going on YouTube, and then I'm spending time trying to unlearn that information. I finally have something that actually can directly relate what I'm trying to get through in my classroom to help these students be prepared and reinforce their learning. So that's how the last year has been. I would say the first 10 months has been. And Joe and Morgan, we're just accelerating that growth right now. It's truly an exciting time for Sharpen and really new innovation in this sector, because there is a lot of new innovation happening in this sector, not just in Sharpen, but more broadly as well.
You know what I noticed? Nobody panics when things go according to plan.
Should you register for the Middle States Commission on Higher Education annual conference this December 4th through 6th in Philadelphia?
100%.
I agree, because the title of the conference is called Setting the Standard, Transformation Through Accreditation. There is no time like the present to explore opportunities in higher education and the future for our students and our business model. Get out and network with your peers this December 4th through 6th at the Middle States Commission on Higher Education annual conference.
Attention.
Are you ready to elevate your institution's marketing and enrollment strategies? Join the EdUp Experience podcast at the Insights EDU conference, February 20th to 22nd in Phoenix, Arizona. Don't miss out on this opportunity to hear from engaging speakers from industry-leading companies like Google, LinkedIn, Adobe, and higher ed leaders. Learn the latest marketing and enrollment strategies to grow your programs. Register now at insightsedu.com and use promo code EdUp to save $50 off your registration.
Attention.
Congratulations. 500,000 learners is a pretty good start, right? So everything is hitting according to plan as you want it to. Of course, you'd want to engage every learner across the world at every single point in time, right? That's the big, hairy goal, I would bet.
I agree.
Talk about, it'd be remiss if we don't talk about AI, and then I'll pass it back to you, Morgan, real quickly. You know, transformation and strategy officers, it's like your job now is AI, right? It used to be organizational strategy and foresight on the business, and now it's if you're not on AI, none of the other stuff matters, right? How's your job changed recently?
Well, it's certainly the first question I normally get from investors or our board as well, and I'm sure Joe and Morgan, a lot of leaders that you've had on the podcast as well. I think fundamentally, AI in higher education has been around, for a while. I mean, we've had in the higher education courses, there's already been courses and degrees around AI and learning in this space. We've already at McGraw Hill invested heavily in AI, and one of our products that we have is called Alex, and Alex is an AI math product that helps students as they pass those early math classes, which is typically a pain point, a real barrier when they're going into college. So we've been applying AI and leadership in AI in the higher education industry for a long time. What is, of course, Joe, why it's become a big subject now is generative AI. And in many ways, we think that's exciting, albeit we need to be mindful of its limitations. And I think what's interesting, what I have seen when I've been talking to both students and instructors is, I don't think, again, no surprise that students are using it. 3 and 5 are using it. We're seeing a lot more uptick in generative AI and chatbots such as ChatGPT, particularly in the science subjects. I think what's also been interesting to see is 1 in 4 instructors have recommended their students to augment their studies by testing out and attempting to learn from these AI chatbots. We do see to that point around its limitations. What's also interesting between students and instructors is both sides see the limitation. They're both very aware that they can't trust it. You know, we think about 40% in the instructor side, 30 to 40% on the student side. They both understand that there's a limitation, the limitation that comes given where we are today. But both sides see that with the way that LLMs can be trained, and if there's the right guardrails around it, it can be a force to really help students to personalize learning, which has been a core mission of ours and our technology products for the last 10 years. And so we do see this long-term, medium to long-term as a positive, but we are, I think, just like the instructors, just like others folks in the higher ed space, very much have our eyes wide open in terms of our duties to provide trusted learning experiences for our faculty, for our students. It's all about harnessing it in the right way.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Morgan.
So I think, you know, in conversations like generative AI, and then certainly when you're in a position of innovation, you come out with a product, it's very exciting, but then the next question is always, well, what's next? Even if you're in the process of still iterating the product that you've already released. So when you think about, you know, the opportunities either with generative AI or the feedback loop that you're getting specifically from the analytics tied to Sharpen or your other entities, what do you forecast will be the next step for, you know, either the platform or the company?
Yeah, let's talk about Sharpen first, and I'll talk a bit more about the company. So we are more at this early stage. We're getting, you know, a couple major pieces of feedback. Number one, from the students, I want more. I want more video. I want more subjects. I want more content. Overwhelmingly, the number one feedback, and we're scaling and responding to it. So, you know, when I mentioned before, we started with around 8 courses. We now have over 120 on Sharpen. The second feedback we're getting is from institutions. And, you know, we at the start, what we wanted to ensure is that we were creating a delightful experience that students want to get to. Now we are working more and more with institutions to think about how we can open this up for all students in the institution so they can crush their year 1. And so the retention rates can increase and they can get what they need to get out of their college experience. And then three, we will be looking to continue our leadership in AI in a responsible way to help meet the students where they are as they're undertaking their learning journey. Because after all, I think we've all been in that experience where we're learning something like, I was reviewing the last video actually before I got on this call on ribosomes, and you know, I'm relearning what a ribosome is, and we all get stuck. And there's nothing wrong with that. And we need that in the time moment to give us an analogy, connect it with real life, to help us get back on the learning journey. And we do believe not only AI in terms of serving the right content in the right time, just like Alex does, but in terms of generative AI, in terms of using that treasure trove of content and providing that output in a different way that is tuned to the learner, is certainly the direction of what we're doing with what we'll be doing with Sharpen. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I did want to give a kudos on, I did download Sharpen and use it a little bit. And to your point on meeting the student where they are, I think the thing that's really unique and that I was impressed by is that you do have the ability to input what you want. So you want 5 minutes, or you want 5 questions, or you want 10 questions. And to your point on time, I think that gives the student the ability to really lean into, how much time do I have to dedicate to study? Am I 5 minutes in between a class, or do I have an hour to actually dedicate to a new subject? So I definitely feel like the app meets what you just mentioned.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because one of the big things we heard from our students, and I think we've all been there, that's work, that I just don't have the time. 73%, they just don't have the time to study, and they sit at their desk, and I think we've all been there, and we're like, I can't fit this in, and I have all these tabs and I'm overwhelmed. And so Morgan was very deliberate in the user experience, that there was only one button to go, and that everything, they could see the time, and everything was under 10 minutes. And then every time we're in reinforcing and building up their confidence, because there's nothing wrong with building up students' confidence and feeling more connected with the content that they're doing. So Morgan, you would have seen that every 5 minutes there is a celebration screen. You're on a streak, get better and better. It was extremely deliberate, and I'm really glad that you noticed that, Morgan.
Might have cheated and taken the marketing one, so I had a leg up, but I did get 100%.
Good.
Are you sure?
I've never got 100%, Morgan.
Got the proof on my dashboard.
I wasn't ready for it, but I just wanted to give you this one.
100%.
That's for you, Morgan. What's interesting about that, the time limitation, you guys were talking about it earlier, is there is a speed, or it's expectation of short, quick, micro learning, right? People that I talk to a lot of times about higher education, because I work at an institution too, and I say, you have to speed this up if you want to cater to today's student. I'm not talking about the 17-year-old. I'm talking about any of us. And it's like, it's why we don't watch the intro on Netflix. When you're watching Netflix and it says skip intro, do you go, you know what? This intro is so stinking good. I would love to sit here for a minute and 30 seconds and watch this introduction. You might watch it the first time because you're forced to, because it doesn't give you the skip intro button, but no one cares to watch the intro. It's why we hit skip, right? It's why everything is designed to move faster. Learning hasn't yet, higher education as an institution, gotten down with that, right? We still have. Go ahead, Justin. Take that and run with it.
Yeah, no, Joe, you're absolutely right. I think about it's like the immediate hook to bring a student into and to connected with the content. I love your example, because you think about when you finish a Netflix thing, they don't make you watch the credits. They don't make you watch the star. You're into the next episode like that, and you're hooked. So when we think about, like, for example, with Sharpen, we don't see it as like micro learning that you're only learning for 5 minutes. We see it as, how do we hook you in so it's less overwhelming? So when we look at our web platform, we see, the average time now that students are in is around 20 minutes at this early junction when we launch, because they hooked in, they do the 5-minute hook, they get, as Morgan was talking about, they get the screen, and they keep trying to then keep them going, keep going till you master this learning objective, or these key things that you've got to learn. For example, in this marketing concept that we're trying to get across to the student. And so, it's that hooking in that student, because once they're in, they're in that class for a reason. They're in because they motivated to be there. A lot of them, Joe, I've seen, you've talked about, the diversity of students. They're in there with different motivations, why they're coming into classroom, the pressures that they have in their life. They're there for a reason. They want to be hooked in. They just want an excuse. Just like a little bit like when we're maybe wasting some time on Netflix as well, or YouTube Shorts, or anything like that I think is really impacting all our lives.
Yeah, the most frustrating thing in the world is the 4-second ad before you get to YouTube video. It's like, literally, what are you doing to my life? Just give me what I want. It's funny that you say that, because Justin, it's one of the reasons why Elvin and I, when we did this podcast, we used to put on, like, a lot of podcasts, they put on music before, and it's like, and then this is the EdUp Experience podcast, and we're like, nobody wants to listen to that cheesy music before, so you're going to jump in and you're going to hear my voice talking about salami sandwiches. If you don't want to listen, that's your choice, but you don't have to make it through the music to get there, right?
Absolutely.
Don't
know what to
you
say.
know
I
a little
agree
bit
with that,
about
Joe.
this, don't you?
Yes. I mean, what do they say? The attention span. I think you have the first 5 seconds to get someone's attention before they've moved on to the next thing. So it's important.
Maybe I need to play these sound effects right at the beginning.
Victory!
Right? Maybe that'll be better for me. Justin, I do want to ask
Joe,
you one.
just very,
Go ahead.
sorry, Joe. One thing. It's very interesting with the sound effects. We saw very similar type of things. We knew with the videos and if you experience Sharpen, it's almost like someone's talking to you over FaceTime, and someone that resonates with them. So very different shot, camera angle, and so we knew we had to hook them in with a question in the Morgan, exactly what you said, the first 2 seconds. And then what we realized, Joe, is that we had to put in these little sounds when a learning objective was set. So a ribosome is blah, blah, blah. Ding.
Attention.
these cues, and it has a 4 minutes. But it's I think rethinking the way that we deliver content. It's I find this incredible, Joe. Like in many ways, the way that you're thinking about the podcast is also the way that we're also seeing learning being delivered in the exact same way. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's funny because the the sounds that we use in the podcast originally started off like, let's make it not boring. Because if you have these higher ed conversations, the general consumer, the general person walking down the street doesn't start looking for higher ed podcasts. That's not what they're looking for. So if we are going to have somebody who's a general listener listen to a podcast with me and Morgan and Justin talking about higher ed and technology, even if you have some baseline interest, it has to be fun. And the only way, gamified, the only way you can do it is you have to do something different. You have to break up the monologues. You have to, and so it's funny because with the podcast, I'll have people that listen that go, I just wait at the end of when someone's talking to hear what you're going to press. And that's when I know that you have something engaging. And you don't set out that way, but when you think about learning, and I always go back to video games, all right? Because I'm a gamer.
Right.
You can go through the same level, right? You go through a level, you lose. You get another chance. You go through it again. You get a little bit better. You get a little bit better. You get a little bit better. And pretty soon you can do it, no problem. That's what learning is, right? And at the end of that, you receive something. You receive a badge or they give you a trophy and it goes, so there's so much to those little bits of learning that we haven't highlighted, I think, in curriculum building.
And I think that that's probably evident. I think at the beginning you had talked about taking inspiration from a number of different places. And I think even my experience in the app, to Joe's, analogy about gaming, very similarly to if you're gaming or, if you're trying to close the rings on your Apple Watch, getting that, you're at 1 of 1 or you're at 100% or you got 1 star out of 5, you're motivated to want to reach that next achievement.
It's interesting, Morgan, very deliberate. And it also talks, for us a little bit about our transformation journey. We knew, education and learning isn't easy. To your point, Joe, you're failing. You have to get yourself up again and try again and yes, and get better. And we saw a lot of parallels in the consumer fitness and well-being industry. And we saw that taking off and even meditation. So things like Headspace or Strava. Morgan, you mentioned Peloton. And so when we thought about the capabilities that we needed, when we started off building Sharpen, we explicitly went out to the market and got those capabilities in terms of building this product. We knew we had the capabilities to make amazing learning content. That's what we've done for 130 years, right? That's not changing. We know how to do that at scale. But when we thought about the look, feel, and the capabilities, that was a very deliberate thing, particularly when transformation, you have to think about, well, what capabilities may I need to find and bring in to create a new experience? And so well, we absolutely took inspiration from those platforms. Why do people, training is hard, exercise is hard, just like learning is hard. It's not meant to be easy. Otherwise you're doing edutainment, right? And I think we all know, a lot of those platforms, they've got a lot of buzz. They're not really, no one's learning anything from them. They're keeping you entertained. I don't find them at all anything helping education. And so it's hard. How do you keep people motivated? And there are sources of inspiration. Obviously, I think in higher education, which have been highlighted in your podcast already, but also in other industries as well.
You know, it's funny, Morgan, when you say, and you don't hit those rings, you kind of feel like this.
Does someone need a hug?
The psychology of it isn't what it's more powerful when the next day when it says, you didn't hit your rings, you lazy son of a gun. It's more, that's more powerful than you achieved all 3 rings. You're like, yeah, I achieved all 3 rings. But when it calls you lazy and it motivates you, you feel bad when you weren't active. How can you get to that same feeling, Justin, where you feel unsatisfied if you didn't learn?
Yes,
right?
it's a positive. It's a feeling of, for Sharpen and a lot of these apps, it's not necessarily saying, you're a bad person, you're lazy, because there's so much. To your point, Joe, there's so much negativity in this space. These students are feeling when they're sitting down for studying a feeling of negativity. Yeah. One of the things that, as we were talking to students, when I talk to students, they keep asking why. One of the things that often breaks my heart that I hear a lot is I just never felt academically accomplished.
Yeah.
And to me, it's how do we positively go, we know that they're feeling that way, make them feel that they're building confidence. But Joe, you're absolutely right. If they miss it, they feel like they're not building that positivity. That positivity is building. There's positivity in this experience for us is really, really important. And that's why it was imperative when we thought about building Sharpen that this wasn't going to be like a test prep platform. The test prep platform always telling you how behind you are behind everyone. Yeah. You're in the 20 percentile, you need to climb up, you've got X day, you're not good enough. Do better. It's that fear, concentrating on people's fear and students' fear. We fundamentally believe that was not going to resonate with the particular type of student that we wanted to get to. So we had to take more of that positivity spin to it and saying like, look, this is great that you did that 20 minutes. It's great. You now know that you missed your streak. To point, Joe. You know it. We know it. Let's keep the positivity up because you're going to get better. You're going to get better. You're going to be able to be more active in class, and ultimately you can get the achievement of the reason why you joined this higher education experience in the first place.
Well, you guys, that we're coming up on time here. We've got 2 final questions we ask of every guest, Justin. It's first of all, what else do you want to say about McGraw Hill? I call this the open mic moment. No formal question here. Talk to us about McGraw Hill, your work, and anything else you want to say.
At McGraw Hill, it is just a wonderful intersection that we get to do to serve the interests of professors, institutions, and students. And we feel absolutely privileged to invest in our transformation journey in line with where and to meet the needs of our instructors and institutions. So a good example of that and the way we think about transformation in my role is how do we think about supporting institutions and instructors? How do we make sure that our product continues to get better and better and better, and our content continues its leadership? So for example, when we think about how we can make the lives of teachers and teaching easier in the higher education sector, we brought in over 100 people last year where their sole focus is just to help teachers and professors' lives easier to undertake their classroom. In our products, I think we've talked a lot about that today in terms of how we're innovating and pushing the boundaries so we can provide education for all. And then lastly, in our content, how do we continue new forms of content and continue our leadership and that trust that we built over 135 years of our company. So as a company, we are continuing to invest in the products and the tools to ensure that our institutions, our professors, our are as successful as possible as they navigate broader challenges, but also importantly, Joe and Morgan, we should both talk about major opportunities in the higher education institute ecosystem.
I'm so glad to hear you specifically give a call out to our teachers who are undervalued, underpaid,
Absolutely.
underappreciated. The worst thing we could do as a society is make their lives harder as they service our kids. And so it was such a great thing for you to say, Justin. And my final question, and I love asking this, particularly love asking this question to Chief Transformation and Strategy Officers, because they should know the answer better than everybody else. And that is, what do you see for the future of higher education?
The future for higher education, Joe, we see is innovation in those major trends that we've been seeing, that we've talked about in this podcast, in the US and across the world. I think we should not be surprised with higher education institutions developing, creating, and deploying new models to address these exact student pain points that we talk today, not only to bring more students in, and Morgan, you mentioned that in terms of the way to reach them, but also in the way to retain them and make sure they're successful. We should not be surprised by the embrace to make our teachers' lives easier with AI tools. We expect more of that as well. And I think we should expect, and we will see the higher education ecosystem continue to evolve to meet the needs of society and the rapid changing nature of the workforce. And I see that examples all the time today in terms of the new skills that our graduates need, and how quickly the higher education institutions have been responding, whether it's the need for data analytics courses, putting real-time simulations in their courses so they're actually getting hands-on training like will be when they enter into the workforce, or the basic knowledge they need to be successful as human beings. So I think we can all expect increasing change, but ultimately positive change as we head into this more normal, if I can say it, more normal post-pandemic era.
Morgan, what did you think of this conversation with Justin today?
I thought it was great. I mean, I would say that first podcast success.
I would say you were pretty darn
amazing,
Morgan.
Great.
Very well done for your first short notice podcast.
I appreciate you having me and being able to be part of this really great discussion.
Ladies and gentlemen, my co-host today, because I can't out the guest until I get the co-host outed the right way here. And I have to do it in a particular way, and I'm stalling right now so I can get the right sound effect. Ladies and gentlemen, her name, Morgan Gonzalez. She's VP of Account Management, Enrollment Management Division of Education Dynamics. That's a long title, Morgan. We're going to have to work on that, shortening that up for future episodes.
Definitely will. You can just say Morgan, but pleasure being
tell your people over there to work on that. Anyway, you guys, such an incredible podcast today. I think we could probably keep talking, particularly when we start talking about speed and technology and social media. It's such interesting topics that affect all of us. My guest today, ladies and gentlemen, he's your guest today. He's Justin Singh. He is Chief Transformation and Strategy Officer at McGraw Hill. Justin, it's been such an honor to have you on. We hope you enjoyed your time here on EdUp.
Yeah, it's been a very enjoyable conversation. Thank you for having me on.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.
Oh, yeah.
The Middle States Commission on Higher Education 2023 Annual Conference is in Philadelphia, December 4th through 6th. Setting the standard, transformation through accreditation. Remember, only you can create transformation through networking, knowledge sharing, opportunity, leadership, service, learning, and accreditation. And you'll do all those things at the Middle States Commission on Higher Education Annual Conference this December 4th through 6th. Can't wait to be there. EdUp will be there. There's going to be over 1,300 attendees, presidents, provosts. The networking opportunities are off the chain. Register now at msche.org.
Oh, yeah.
Attention higher ed marketing and enrollment management professionals. We are taking the EdUp Experience podcast to Insights EDU. Join us at Insights EDU on February 20th to 22nd, 2024 in Phoenix, Arizona. Gain insight into the latest higher education trends and cutting-edge marketing strategies that'll take your institution's enrollment to a whole new level. This is your opportunity to connect with higher education leaders and marketing experts from across the country. Comprehensive presentations, engaging panel discussions, and more. Insights EDU will equip you to position your institution for growth. Register now at insightsedu.com and use the code EdUp to save $50 off your registration. Can you afford to miss this conference?
I don't think so.